Welcome to my helicopter experiment. For the question, it says, what material will fly in the air longer? Is it copy paper, parchment paper, or cardboard? My hypothesis says if the material of the helicopter is composed of lighter components, then the time, which is measured in seconds, the helicopter flies will be longer. Next is the controlled variable. And this is the original design of the helicopter, as well as the number of paper clips, which will always be 2. The constant variable is the height at which the helicopter is dropped, which is 37 inches. Independent variables are the various helicopter materials, which is copy paper, parchment paper, and cardboard. Next are the dependent variables, and that is the flight time. And the materials that I needed for this experiment is the helicopter template, copy paper, parchment paper, cardboard, stopwatch, which is on my phone, pencil, paper clips, and a measuring tape. We start off with the cardboard, and as you can see when I'm placing it at the correct height, the cardboard just falls to the ground and the propellers on the helicopter do not spin. And this is why it has the least amount of time. Next, we have the copy paper, and this did the best. You can see the way that it propels when it gets to the bottom and it starts to spin a lot more, and it allowed it to stay in the air for a long period of time. Next is the parchment paper, and you can already see that the wings are bent over and not straight out at a 90-degree angle like they should be. This paper was very flimsy, so it was reflected accurately in the times in seconds. The next is the data. As you can see, the copy paper had the most time in the air with an average of 0.70 seconds. The parchment paper had an average of 0.52 seconds in the air, and the cardboard only had an average of a 0.38 seconds in the air. So the conclusion of the experiment, here is a bar graph that shows the average times that all 3 of the materials were in the air for. So after creating the 3 helicopters and attaching the paper clips, you can see that the copy paper did the best out of all 3 materials and flew for an average of 0.70 seconds. And the second material, which is the parchment paper, flew for an average of 0.52 seconds, and finally for an average flight time of 0.38 seconds was the cardboard. And the previous hypothesis, which states if the material of the helicopter is composed of lighter components, then the time of the helicopter in which it'll fly will be longer, and that hypothesis is not accurate. Although the copy paper is lighter in weight than the cardboard, it flew longer, but the hypothesis was stating the parchment paper should fly the longest because of the light material. However, that's not correct. And in the end, the copy paper flew the longest, despite having a heavier weight than the parchment paper. Lastly, I wanted to include images of the helicopters themselves. So with the cardboard one, you can see that it's super stiff, which allowed it to not fly in the air properly. However, the copy paper, you can see that it has its wings perfectly at like a 90-degree angle, and it looks as if it is more prepared to fly and to make that spinning motion that it needs. And then the parchment paper, you can also clearly see that the wings are not at a 90-degree angle, like how I mentioned earlier in the video, and that they're almost curling, so it did not live up to the hypothesis that I thought. I thought the lighter material, the parchment paper, was going to allow the paper to almost float in the air, but because of the thinness of the paper, the wings simply curled up and did not allow for the parchment paper to fly as accurately.